After a genre-defining trilogy and a solid spin-off title in Halo 3 ODST, Bungie treated fans with one final game in Halo Reach before going on to make bigger and worse games. Released in 2010 for the Xbox 360, Halo Reach tells the tale of Noble Team, a group of Spartans during the final days of the planet Reach as they attempt to hold off the Covenant invasion. Reach acts as a prequel to the trilogy, as the events of the story lead directly into Combat Evolved. Gameplay has a few unique aspects to it, some of which tie into the first game, while others set the stage for future titles, while remaining Halo at its core. The Halo games perfected a gameplay loop revolving around movement and three pillars of offense: guns, grenades, and melee. You only have two guns on you at a time, with the choices being important as different weapons are effective against certain enemies. And sticky grenades are the best things ever created. Defensively, mobility is your greatest asset. You can jump high, strafe, and move faster than the more grounded FPS protagonists. The Covenant primarily uses projectile weapons instead of hit scan, which allows you to avoid damage if you play carefully. Outside of on-foot combat, the series has a focus on vehicular combat, with a lot of memorable levels where vehicles were the primary focus. This series is great at changing the context for battles. Some battles are in tight quarters, while others are large scale. Nearly all of the time you have full reign to approach them however you'd like. I believe that is what makes the Halo series special: freedom and variety in its gameplay. Just wanted to quickly get everyone on the same page before showing how Halo Reach changes it. If you want more info on how those earlier titles work, check out my other Halo videos. I go into greater detail in those. Reach removed and added several mechanics that affect how these pillars play out. The removal of dual wielding means you always have access to grenades and melee, but dual wielding is awesome, and it hasn't been seen in the series since, which sucks. Dual wielding was a popular feature, but since doing so temporarily blocked you from using the other pillars, the devs decided it's best to drop the feature entirely, instead of maybe rebalancing it. You could make the argument that they did this to make the gameplay similar to Combat Evolved, since they reintroduced health and medkits. Assassinations are new, they're awesome, pointless, but awesome, and is the best addition to Reach. I think on the defensive side of things is where Reach differs the most from other Halos and provided a blueprint that the next game in the series followed, and is where this game is a bit more interesting. Reach introduced abilities, which are rechargeable moves that come in a variety of flavors, from sprinting, armor lock, jetpacks, holograms, and more. All abilities either provide a boost to your mobility or a defensive action. You cannot directly harm foes with an ability. This provides more to think about, as you can only have one ability at a time, which means you'll need to see from the environment which ability is best suited for the current situation, which in a way is par for the course for Halo, as choosing from a limited number of options is exactly how guns work. The abilities all have unique utilities to them, and numerous situations where they can be effective. For example, Armor Lock is good for keeping safe against heavy damage, either to avoid grenades or an explosive weapon. You can also use it to catch your breath during a frantic firefight. They usually give you sprint by default, and you'll have to hope that they give you more than one other option at a time. Jetpacks are mainly given when they are necessary. Because of this, I mostly use sprint unless I went out my way to try something else. Abilities are a good addition to combat, but I don't believe they were fully fleshed out. Sprinting is the only one that is always useful. Moving around faster either to reach somewhere in an offensive or defensive way is always favorable, which is likely why it's the only one that is still around, while abilities as a whole have gotten multiple overhauls in the later games. Abilities are fascinating, but they seemed like a box was ticked more than anything. Like, hey, let's add a new feature, where in reality, it doesn't fully change the experience. There is utility to them, but not a big change to gameplay like hijacking was to Halo 2 and onwards. That might sound like a small mechanic to add, but it allows you to go from on foot to in a vehicle and provides new ways to deal with vehicles in general. That change added so much to gameplay where abilities don't, in my opinion. Reach does feature a few small tweaks to existing mechanics. The motion tracker indicates relative enemy height along with position. Precision weapons require a bit more time in between shots than before. Speaking of precision weapons, the DMR is here, and I love it. There are a few weapons and vehicles unique to Reach, which sadly haven't been seen since, with the Revenant being my favorite vehicle in the series that I hope returns at some point. Reach only features the Covenant as the enemies, which results in a few bigger changes. The trilogy made sure to mix battles with the Covenant and the Flood. Those factions are distinct in the way they fight, which provides a unique feeling in their encounters. Halo Reach doesn't have access to this change of pace, so they went with a different solution. Levels feature a lot of set pieces and one-off ideas. There's the space combat section, along with the helicopter section shortly after, and a few turret segments that act as transitions between areas. Previous Halo games had set pieces, but those didn't introduce new mechanics. Sections like the final levels in Halo CE and 3 had you drive a Warthog. Reach has to teach you to fly a spaceship just for it to be dropped and never touched again. I don't think they needed to do this, as the Covenant are great and varied foes. I do understand the feeling of needing to mix up what the player is doing though. These differences in kind can keep things fresh and allow for greater variety than combat alone can typically provide. So those are some of the changes, but discussing them doesn't answer how good the game actually is. I believe Halo Reach is the pinnacle of the series and the pinnacle of gaming as a whole. It is the first game that allows players to drive a forklift. That is what games are made for. Scratch that, that is what technology is for, and why technological progress was so important. Why did we start building computers, games, everything else if it wasn't to reach this point in history? We as a people, as one human race, needed to get to a point where we could drive forklifts in a simulated world. Joking over, I think Halo Reach is a solid title that is kind of a holding pattern for Halo, adding some things, removing others, but still having a good level of quality. It's familiar but not revolutionary, while still being enjoyable for fans of the series. It is very difficult to innovate but still maintain a sense of familiarity. If you've played games for a long time or just followed media, you've seen instances where innovation led to something horrendous, like Def Jam Icon. Fuck that game. Not saying innovation is bad, just trying to change too much can lead to problems. The set piece moments, while enjoyable, are never built upon to be more than a temporary gimmick. A few of the changes they've made don't offer enough change to feel different from past titles. The return of health kits sounds big, but they are found frequently and your health regenerates between one of 3 stages. These changes make the return of non-regenerating health not that big of a deal. Abilities are enjoyable to use, but outside of a few instances, the devs don't know which one you'll have equipped, so it's hard to really build off of them. They're instead just a mechanic that you can finish the game without really using. Looking at the titles after Reach, 343 needed like 3 reworks of abilities before they found a good enough system in Halo Infinite, so it's not surprising that they weren't perfect on the first try. The point I'm trying to make is that Reach does try to innovate, but its innovations are things that don't really alter the experience in a significant way. They are fun ideas, but they are not game changers. That's not to say that Reach is bad. The combat is still really good. Everything I love about Halo is here. Battles are fun and fast paced with the AI creating varied encounters. The pacing is like an action movie where it just goes from level to level, introducing some new things along the way and having some memorable moments like the nighttime sniping section. When Halo Reach is at its best, levels flow from one great battle to the next and progressing through various sections that show off the planet of Reach. But at its worst, the levels are not like that. The helicopter level can offer different objectives, but you always seem to do the same on foot sections each time, with each on foot section being a simple A to B and back to A. I personally dislike the number of times they just have you defend a point. Those sections are just waves of enemies, and I like the combat, but I like progressing forwards in a level while in combat. Those sections feel like progress is temporarily halted. I realize many games and even previous Halo titles have had sections like this, but that doesn't make them any more enjoyable. There are enough instances where it's like half the levels have some sort of wait and defeat waves of enemies sort of battle. That's not my only problem with the levels here, as later in the game you return to previous locations, which has happened in past titles, but the difference is those games had the flood to offer a different challenge than what you had to deal with on your first trip. The return islands in Reach are to show an escalation in narrative, but never in gameplay. Editor's note, this doesn't happen outside of like one level, so I don't know why I mentioned it that much. I think Halo Reach is good, but the level design shows a lot of weaknesses. This one kind of made me hate playing on heroic or higher, as having to repeatedly do those defense sections got a bit on my nerves. Playing on normal, it was like playing something like Uncharted or Tomb Raider, and I mean that in a positive way, where you're just going from level to level, mowing down everything, and experiencing a couple of fun one-off ideas. Reach does showcase a type of pacing that makes it unique in the series, so my annoyances on the defense sections can be lessened by playing on a lower difficulty, but they don't go away. And I'm so annoyed with them because I feel like they add nothing but padding to the game's runtime. Overall, I feel like there's a bit of disconnect from narrative and gameplay, where the devs missed opportunities to tie them together. I have opinions on the story of Halo Reach. I'm not going to discuss the books or other media depicting the fall of Reach. I just want to focus solely on this game and what it depicts. Plus, I'm lazy, and talking about all that is more work than I want to do now. Like, I'm just a nigga just trying to have some fun. I'm not getting paid for this shit. Like, okay? The general framing of the story is a fairly standard alien invasion plot with a few twists. One is that this isn't Earth. Two, they know of these enemies, they just weren't expecting them to get to us on this planet.
We were attacked by Covenant forces. The Covenant is on Reach. I repeat, the Covenant is on Reach.
3 is that we follow soldiers, but not regular ones, but genetically enhanced soldiers. A lot of the story is fairly standard. It is a simple story told well, nothing completely groundbreaking, and uses enough common storytelling basics that is understandable for a wide audience. Whether or not they are a fan of the Halo series, anyone can still follow along quite easily, while superfans can spot a couple of deeper aspects of it. I should give a quick plot summary for this game since it might have been a while since you played it, so here it goes. Skip to the next section to avoid spoilers. Alright, clip notes time. So Noble 6, you, arrives on Reach and joins the Noble team. This group is first tasked with finding what happened in a nearby area and discover that the Covenant are on Reach. Battles ensue and you have different tasks trying to find out what they are doing and finding ways to fight back. Destroying their ships, trying to evacuate civilians, and other stuff. Noble team ends up dying one by one. George exploded, Kat becomes more open-minded, Carter finishes pilot school, Emil gets his back blown out, and June just leaves at some point. Noble 6 gives Cortana to Captain Keyes and then dies in one of the best final sections of an FPS game. Okay, so I missed out on a lot of details, but that's a rough summary. The main things I have to complain about aren't really plot focus, they are character focus. Cause there aren't really well executed characters in Reach. Like, they all die, but their deaths don't carry impact because they don't have an emotional investment in them. Death is an incredibly powerful tool in stories if used well. That's why fans will still talk about how gut punched they are over certain deaths. Like, mention to any Full Metal Alchemist fan how today is a terrible day for Rain, and you'll see what I mean. The deaths here kinda just happen. Like, the writers go, I guess Kat has done all she needs to. Sniper, also with her helmet on, which makes helmets look useless. There are so many times she is without a helmet on, but has her get shot after she puts it back on. The deaths just happen and we move on fairly quickly. No one has an arc. The only thing that changes about Noble Team from beginning to end is their heart rate. I know they want these deaths to be meaningful, but without that emotional connection, they don't come off as impactful as they should. I think Carter, George, and Kat were decently fleshed out, but clearly not enough. The other issue I have is that they could have done things to connect the story and gameplay better. The protagonist has a background in flying, but that only comes up a few times. If we fly around in helicopters so much, maybe have Noble 6 act as the team's pilot. That would cause a lot of other changes to need to be made, but it would show the unique role 6 plays in the team. As it is now, it looks like they wanted that space battle and just wrote it in without considering how it could affect other aspects. A bigger thing I wish they did was actually establish the brutes in this game. Fans know how dangerous they are, and they could have established this by having a high ranking brute kill a member of Noble Team. It could have made sense to kill Kat with an armored brute that could have led to a fight against it, since Kat dying and the brutes being introduced happened so close to each other. This would establish the brutes as a threat and have their introduction into the game carry more impact. But no, Kat just dies to a random jackal and the brutes just show up. They just show up out of nowhere. Oh, a civilian just walking by and it's like, what in the orangutan fuck is this thing, and now I'm dead. Bloop. Also, Sergeant Johnson should have been a part of the story to give him a better send-off than he got in Halo 3. I'll give praise to the writers where it's due. The framing of the story is well done. They show a good amount of devastation that this battle has caused, and how important Reach is as a colony. The large number of military facilities and ships present, with Dr. Halsey doing key research that led to Cortana, that shows how important it is as a military asset. But all the residential areas you see shows that this is a home to billions of people. There are some missions that showcase the absolute terror and devastation the people who live there must feel. And it was a nice touch to even team up with a local militia trying to defend Reach themselves. The amount of ships the Covenant sent showed they are not taking this lightly. They sent damn near everything their way. Details like that make me appreciate what Bungie did in this story. There was clearly a lot of care and thought put into it, but that same level of care didn't go into the characters we spend our entire time with. One quick word on multiplayer. The main reason why I don't speak about multiplayer in these videos is because I don't play multiplayer modes anymore. I had several amazing experiences playing Halo Online, I just don't find multiplayer in general much fun anymore. It's more of a me thing than a game's fault, but if I don't like something, I try not to play it. So I'm not going to give critiques of multiplayer as I don't believe I'll be able to do so in a fair way. Just getting that out there in case anyone asks why I don't cover multiplayer in any game I discuss. Like I've said earlier, Halo Reach represents a holding pattern for the series. It's a familiar formula with some new additions that allows it to be a little different but still maintains what fans love. The Covenant are still great foes, as always, with a great personality. Even if the gameplay doesn't reach the same highs as past titles, doesn't mean Reach isn't a great game in its own right. There are problems I have with the level design and story, but I still believe that Reach is great. I have a lot of fun with this title, and some of the unique aspects of it, like set pieces, has it stand out over the rest of the series. Abilities are Halo Reach's biggest legacy, as 343 used a similar framework in Halo 4, but that's a video for another day. I think Reach is a game that could use a remake that changes things for the better, like level design and characters, but still having a few set pieces. It holds up well and is an important part in the series, and for me and my journey of researching how the Halo games have evolved over the years. That is all for this video. Thank you so much for watching my video. It really means a lot. Please like and share and subscribe, and please join me in the next video where I get fashionable as fuck, boy, let's go!